Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Good. Actually, good morning. All right. Starting off with the wrong time period of the day. Good morning, everyone. My name is Robin Wansley, and I am the chair of the Administration Enterprise Oversight Committee, and I am going to call to order our meeting scheduled for today, February 18th, 2025. But before we begin the meeting, I do want to offer a friendly reminder to all committee members, staff, and the public that these meetings are broadcast live to enable greater public participation. These broadcasts include real-time captioning as a further method to increase the accessibility of our proceedings to the community. Therefore, all speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that our captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcast. We ask all speakers to moderate the speed and clarity of their comments. And with that, I will ask the clerks to call the roll.
Councilmember Vita.
Present.
Ellison is absent. Cashman is absent. Chugtai.
Present.
Vice Chair Palmisano.
Present.
And Chair Wansley.
Present.
There are 4 members present.
Let the record reflect that we do have a quorum. I will remind my colleagues that we're also going to be using speaker management today, so please make sure to sign in. And if you need any further assistance with that, please contact the clerks. That said, we do have 20 items for the consent agenda that I'll now read for the record. The first is a gift acceptance from Smartsheet for travel and lodging expenses. Number 2 is gift acceptance for civilian investigators to attend Corner House forensic interview protocol training. Number 3 is 2024 quarterly donations reports. Number 4 is grant from McKnight Foundation for strategic planning and development. Number 5 is the State of Minnesota Homeland Security and Emergency Management grants for bomb detection equipment and associated training. Number 6 is a contract with Corner House Interagency for forensic interview services of children and vulnerable adults. Number 7 is contract with Metro Youth Diversion for East Lake Street and East Franklin Community Safety Ambassador Pilot Programs. Number 8 is a contract with Forrester Research, Inc. for providing market research and advisory services. Number 9 is contract with various vendors for the 2025 through 2027 Public Works Community Engagement Consulting Pool. Number 10 is a contract with U.S. Bank for banking services to provide payment, processing, and deposit account services. 11 is a contract amendment with Guidehouse, Inc. for a market study of elected officials' compensation. 12 is a contract amendment with Keystone Compensation Group, LLC, for classification and compensation consulting services. 13 is a contract amendment with Sean Lundquist Associates for the City Hall Restack Phase 3 project. 14 is a contract amendment with Percept, Inc. for continued services for the My Minneapolis Employee Engagement Survey. 15 is a bid for Battle Motors Truck Parts and Service. 16 is a bid for Hot Mix Asphalt. 17 is a bid for 2025 Water Main Cleaning and Lining Project. 18 is a legal settlement with Benedia Campbell v. City of Minneapolis. And then 19 is a legal workers' compensation claim of James Mota. And then 20 is a legal settlement workers' compensation claim of Mark Koenig. So with that, I will see if there's anyone in queue. I see Vice Chair Palmisano.
Madam Chair, I'm curious about item number 9. This was one that was, it was a walk-on, but to agenda setting. I see number 9, part 19. There is a master services agreement with the Phillips West Neighborhood Organization. One of the things as we moved to consider ongoing funding for neighborhood organizations and community groups that would receive money from NCR, and it was a reduced amount of money from the total amount they were getting in the past, was that they could be utilized to do community engagement. And so To that end, I'm curious if this was directly marketed to any neighborhood organizations. It looks like Phillips West found their way in here, but I guess I'm surprised not to see any others in places that we have very large public works projects going on. And I just am, I'm just curious. I know that Council President Payne had recommended this happen maybe a couple years ago. So is there anyone here from Public Works that could help illuminate? Thank you.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry. Good morning, Madam Chair Wansley and Councilmember Palmisano. Yes, my name is Menno Schuking. I'm a transportation planner with Public Works. We are very excited to bring this Public Works Community Engagement Pool to you today for the recommended firms and organizations for this master contract. To answer your question, Councilmember Palmisano, yes, we marketed it to neighborhood organizations, community-based organizations, and nonprofits in the city, and 3 neighborhood organizations are recommended. In addition to Phillips West, also the Harrison neighborhood organization, as well as there was one more. Shoot.
I just wasn't reading fast
Yeah.
enough. So Harrison, West Phillips, and North Side?
Yes, sorry, yes, NRC. So more applied, but these were, there was a lengthy selection process. We had over 80 applicants, 22 were selected. And some of them are based, some of them were based on the work that we anticipate in some of these neighborhoods in the coming years. So,
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, this was, I guess I'd call it Councilmember Payne's fee-for-service idea in terms of organizations being able to, be paid for their services of being connected to community.
yes.
So I'm glad to see. Are you saying that many more neighborhood organizations applied and community groups applied, but they just weren't found to be sufficient? I would imagine you would need to have a full-time staff member in neighborhoods that would be hosting something like this.
That staffing was one of the selection criteria that we used for this pool, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
That all for your questions and comments, Vice Chair Palmisano?
Yeah, I guess, just outwardly, I'm curious, how do smaller neighborhoods compete for something like this? And that's a question I'll just take with me into the future and online and working with Public Works.
You sure you don't want to do a staff memo for that, or would you prefer to do offline?
I guess we could do a staff memo if you would. I'd like to understand how smaller neighborhoods compete for these in the future. A neighborhood in my ward, the Fulton neighborhood, is definitely going to be relied on as we go through a massive flooding mitigation project. It's been like 15 years in coming, and they've been working on this for about that long. So I'd like to understand better how we coordinate that work between the city and these neighborhood groups. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, clerks, for capturing that. So I have me next on queue. First, comment, and then I'll make a motion to also separate the vote on a few items. But I did want to just say thank you to the staff for bringing forward the Safety Ambassador pilots. I'm really excited to see this on today's agenda, and I know a number of my colleagues who particularly wrote the budget amendment to get these programs implemented. Ideally, the goal was to have them be implemented last year. But I am very grateful for Director Harrington's leadership over at the Office of Community Safety, who has really been pivotal in making sure that both the budgetary resources and the intent of this program, specifically from the council members who have been championing it, has basically come into fruition. So I'm really, really excited to see this advance forward, and just want to give kudos to the staff who worked on that. Second, I will be motioning to move both items 19 and 20 for a separate vote. And with that, I will ask the clerks to call, all those in, I'll just do a voice vote on items 1 through 18. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, those not in favor, all right, the ayes have it. Next, I will ask for a roll call vote on items 19 and 20.
Councilmember Vita.
Aye.
Ellison is absent. Cashman is absent. Chugtai?
Nay.
Palmazano?
Aye.
And Wansley.
Nay.
There are 2 ayes and 2 nays.
Okay, that I'm pretty sure Council Vice President is in queue for a motion. I was thinking of making, but CV Chugtai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move to forward these to the City Council meeting without recommendation.
And I'll second that. I think we can just do a voice vote on that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, those not in favor, all right, the ayes have it, and that motion carries. So with that, we have completed the items on the agenda, consent agenda. Now moving on to the discussion part of our agenda, starting with items 21 and 22, which are contract with multiple organizations for the 2025 GVI and YGVI services. We've had substantial discussion about these contracts, particularly with the motion last week where we postponed indefinitely around transitioning funding for these programs over to Hennepin County. In light of that and recognizing a number of colleagues would like to dive further into learning more about this work, also some of the history around the mismanagement of these programs. I have, and I announced this on Thursday, I've decided to refer these items to the Committee of the Whole. That way, all 13 committee members will be able to receive the same information and make an informed decision on how they would like to move forward with these contracts. So that said, I am going to be motioning again to refer these items to the Committee of Whole, which will take place on February 25th. I've already been in conversations with Chair Chavez, and they are amenable and agreeable to this. So with that, just verifying with the clerks, I think that's all I have to do, or does that require a vote?
Yes, that requires a vote.
All right, with that, to refer these items to the Committee of the Whole, I will ask for a second.
Second.
Okay, we can do a voice vote on that. Oh, sorry, roll call vote. My apologies for that.
I was like,
I know, I looked at you, I was like, what? Oh, I see Councilmember Vita in queue.
Thank you, Chair Wansley. I just have a question for clarification. So this item is going to be sent over to the Committee of the Whole for discussion and for a vote. These the proposed contracts will be sent over to Committee of the Whole, which the entire body sits on for discussion and for a vote.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So that said, we can take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Vita.
Aye.
Ellison is absent. Cashman is absent. Chugtai?
Aye.
Vice Chair Palmazano?
Aye.
And Chair Wansley.
Aye.
All right, there are 4 ayes.
All right, so that motion carries. Those items have been referred to the Committee of the Whole, which again will take place on February 25th, and I believe at 1:30, and that information will be made public to the public via our LIMS file and calendar. So that said, we're moving on to item 23, which is a presentation related to milestones for Outcomes Minneapolis, and this is related to our performance management efforts here at the city. So with that, I will ask Director Kira Hasbargen, who oversees the Performance Management and Innovation Department, to come up and deliver that presentation for us.
Thank you.
Chair Wansley, committee members, good morning. My name is Kira Hasbargen, and I'm the Director of the Performance Management and Innovation Department. We're really excited to come. I'll be joined today by our great team down in PMI to talk to you about all of the great things that we have done since we last presented to you in August 2024. As sort of stated, our presentation today will focus on Outcomes Minneapolis, the city's framework for performance management, and then it's other PHS committee meetings, just so this committee is sort of aware. We will be presenting on sort of the other sort of piece of our work, which is community safety and how we are collaborating and partnering with Office of Community Safety. So we're really excited again to present to you today. You do have in front of you an updated packet. The only significant difference is on slide 8. We added in a donut chart for you. Otherwise, everything remains substantively the same from what was uploaded into the LIMS system. And we did ask the clerk after this to please update that so the public can see that updated chart. So what is Outcomes Minneapolis? Outcomes Minneapolis represents a flexible framework that can be applied in different ways. Since the launch just 10 months ago, we've worked with departments and offices to highlight core services, integrate with operations, and deepen impact to help build a strong foundation for data-driven, evidence-based culture. The design incorporates learning and best practices from leading cities, and it centers on a couple of things that we've talked with you about before. First, the alignment to strategic goals and priorities, having clear objectives of the work, measures that demonstrate performance in that objective, collecting data and analyzing to see how we are doing, and really gaining insight so that we can take action to improve results. Outcome Minneapolis supports good governance and builds public transparency about the impact of the city's work and our more than 4,000 employees who support it each and every day. Our efforts are really focused on increasing efficiency, effectiveness, and really making a difference for the lives of people who live, work, and play in the city. Our presentation today is going to share the various ways that we have used the framework. And before we jump into the integration of the framework, we want to talk to you about the who and the how. So through Outcomes Minneapolis, we, Performance Management and Innovation, have engaged with every department and office in the city. In addition to being available through email, quick check-ins, and other sort of hallway check-ins, we've supported staff in a number of ways. We've engaged with nearly 150 separate times. So how have we done that? The first are workshops. Workshops to help ensure that staff received consistent information and created alignment across the enterprise. Collaborative sessions to help develop and refine performance measures together. And office hours to provide flexibility for individualized assistance and responding to those unique requests in a meaningful way to help them move their work forward. Our support is tailored and uniquely set to each request. Meetings often cover multiple different types of assistance and have multiple meetings to really help ensure that we can resolve the issue that's brought to us and to really help departments figure out how they can start integrating performance management. Tracking the preliminary purpose of each engagement is important. It really allows us to understand our services, what's being used the most frequently, and how we can best meet community need.
Chair Wansley, council members, good morning. I'm Eric Dunans, he, him, and a program manager with Performance Management and Innovation. I'm excited to share how PMI has applied the Outcomes Minneapolis framework to guide the city towards a culture of performance management. One way it takes shapes is in our annual program that aligns to best practices nationally that encourage continuous improvement where everyone has ownership of their work. Annual, ongoing tracking of measures provides insights on what it is and isn't working, allowing departments to refine their approach over time. Before touching on each step, it's important to recognize why it is important to build a culture of performance management in the city. First, developing performance measures is the start of understanding whether programs are achieving their intended results and lays the groundwork for understanding impact. Second, performance management supports informed decision-making and resource allocation. By tracking outcomes, departments can use data to guide decisions and distribute resources effectively. And third, clearly defined measures help departments communicate the value of their services and connect to broader city goals. So we first shared this graphic on the slide in March 2024, and we've made significant progress since then. PMI built on the groundwork laid in step 1 to introduce performance management. We engaged city staff to select measures this summer in step 2, and to visualize outcomes in step 3 this fall. The next few slides are going to delve deeper into slides 2 and 3, but I do want to name that starting this spring in step 4, we will be supporting departments in turning insights into action, and so we look forward to presenting on this step in Q2. So let's look more closely at that measure development. So to support measure creation and selection, we provided departments with guidance and tools to ensure a focus on outcomes. Tools center around a structured, outcomes-focused framework aimed at identifying measures that demonstrate those intended impacts. We worked closely with departments to define what those performance measures are that align closest to their core services while emphasizing the long-term impact. As part of this process, we facilitated several workshops where we guided teams through an approach that covered key elements such as naming impact objectives, creating measures, and setting targets and baselines. Each city department and office participated in working sessions with us where they developed at least one outcome measure, with the goal then of continuing to develop those measures with their teams after the workshop. In total, 65 hours of structured support and guidance were provided to help departments refine their measures and to align them with strategic city goals. With these performance measures in place, the next step in the Outcomes Minneapolis program is data visualization, ensuring that performance data is clear, accessible, and actionable so departments and stakeholders can use it to inform decisions and improve city services.
Chair Wansley, council members, my name is Rebecca Fife, and I'm a data analyst for performance management and innovation. Our team of analysts has collaborated with subject matter experts to support and develop both dashboards and case studies that bring departments' measures and impact stories to life. These visualizations help department leaders quickly identify trends and understand progress on key measures, which supports data-informed decision-making. Specifically, dashboards pair charts with narrative to better understand department measures and priorities. Sharing these key department performance insights with interested stakeholders increases engagement and understanding. On this slide, you can see a section of a draft dashboard built for the Civil Rights Department. This page showcases measures for one of the Civil Rights divisions, and it supports the department objective of completing objective, quality, and efficient investigations to produce tangible, actionable outcomes. As of February, visualizations, which again includes both dashboards and case studies, have been created for nearly 80% of the city's departments and offices. City residents and others interested in department performance will be able to use these visualizations to unlock new understanding when they are published publicly in spring 2025. Having discussed the program's ongoing efforts, we're now excited to introduce a recent development that reflects the continued growth and identity of the Outcomes Minneapolis program. This is the new Outcomes Minneapolis logo. The goal was to create a visual identity that aligns with the program's mission and builds trust with our partners and the community. The puzzle pieces within the logo represent the interconnected nature of performance management. Just as individual pieces come together to complete a puzzle, achieving the program's desired outcomes requires a coordinated effort across the enterprise. This logo was developed in collaboration with the Document Solutions Center team, Tom Lang and Chris Seelig. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Wansley and council members. My name is Bethlehem Yahalwork, and I am a program manager with Performance Management and Innovation. PMI partnered with the Budget Office to support departments in refining the performance section of their funded budget proposals. Our approach involved reviewing budget proposals, researching potential performance measures, and consulting with department contacts. In these meetings, we shared initial recommendations and worked collaboratively through an iterative process to refine and finalize performance measures. This collaboration supports departments measuring and reporting the impact from funding and reinforces the budget principle of accountability and mayoral priority of good governance. Here's an example of how we worked with regulatory services through our collaboration guide. So PMI staff provided feedback and comments section of the budget proposal and direct line edits to the document. Staff talked through the recommendations and suggestions with department contacts during the consultation meeting and throughout the process. The proposal was then updated in the budget book. We asked these collaborators what their experience working with PMI was like through our anonymous customer satisfaction survey. And 90% of respondents indicated that PMI provided them with the skills and resources necessary to participate successfully in continuous improvement efforts. We look forward to continued partnerships to further integrate the use of performance measures in budget and thank our partners for the opportunity to collaborate. So a recommendation from the Safe and Thriving Communities report was implementing performance-based contracting. Performance-based contracting at the city will support our ability to track impact, increase transparency, and support a culture of data-driven decision-making. Last year, PMI sat on OCS's finance subcommittee to help take a cross-departmental approach to connecting the city's strategic goals to contracting. Building on the exploratory research we've conducted on promising practices in performance-based contracting, how it's implemented in other jurisdictions, and current practices in Minneapolis, we're exploring opportunities for technical assistance with Results for America. Results for America is a leading national organization that supports governments in using evidence and data to increase impact. This external expertise will support us in quickly deploying evidence-based promising practices to service provision provided by our vendors. One example of how we've already begun to implement these practices into new city contracts is through the Community Safety Ambassador RFP. The Community Safety Ambassador RFP includes a section on performance measures, like number of referrals made by ambassadors, average response time per incident, and percent of identified livability issues resolved within a specified time frame. Further emphasizing the city's commitment to tracking progress towards program goals and objectives. This is also an opportunity for the city to collaborate with selected vendors in refining and finalizing these performance measures. These measures will focus on ambassador activities and assess the program's impact in enhancing safety visibility and resources in the area of focus. The selected vendor will be required to provide quarterly reports on the selected performance measures. This collaborative approach fosters transparency and accountability in data collection and reporting for both parties.
Chair Wansley, council members, good morning. I'm Ia Zhang, one of the data analysts in performance management and innovation. As part of our commitment to sharing impact and aligning with city priorities, we partnered with the Budget Office to develop case studies to highlight how the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, funding support the pandemic recovery, and we appreciate the partnership in making this work possible. The case studies highlight real-world impact of city programs and the importance of performance measurement, and demonstrating how programmatic decisions and staff efforts translate into positive outcomes for the community. One example is the Simpson Community Shelters and Apartments. The funding is supporting the development of 42 supporting housing units and 24/7 services for individuals experiencing homelessness. We also want to thank our partner in community planning and economic development, the Minneapolis Health Department, Public Works, and Human Resources for the collaboration in showcasing 8 key projects across the enterprise. Their programming demonstrates how targeted investments have addressed critical community needs, especially for historically marginalized community. By understanding outcomes, we can see what's working, where adjustments are needed, and what this means for future funding and policy decisions. The full ARPA spending impact is available on the city's website under the city budget section. Projects like this provide valuable insight to how we can measure impact, They also reinforce the importance of equipping our city staff with the skills and tools to to use performance data effectively. One way we're enhancing this capacity is through Innovation U, a new on-demand learning platform designed to empower city employees with skills to use performance data in their work. Innovation U is part of PMI's broader approach to creating small culture changes through capacity building. Playing on the screen is a glimpse of the draft course we plan to release in Q1. We are creating on-demand learning opportunities available to all employees through the city learning management system. This effort is critical to train, upskill, and empower city staff to work with performance data to inform decision-making. These courses provide key takeaways and consistency in material, language, and tools with departments in continuous improvement and innovation. On-demand courses offer create internal staff capacities to take on more tailored work with departments in continuous improvement and innovation. Thanks to Nancy Mai, Colette Aburaim, and Hunter Wolf from Information Technology Collaboration Team, who have been central partners in getting these courses designed.
Chair Wansley, council members, my name is Andra Bosniak. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Deputy Director of Performance Management and Innovation. As internal consultants, building strong relationships and understanding how our support is providing value are important parts of our work. A vital part of this relationship building process is gathering feedback from our partners. To do this, we ask collaborators to fill out an anonymous satisfaction survey after working with us. These anonymous responses help us best fulfill the needs of city employees because they show areas where we are doing well and areas where there are opportunities for better alignment. Responses on the survey have been overwhelmingly positive, which indicates that our work is high quality and provides a tangible benefit to our collaborators. This helps us build trust with city staff and create strong relationships throughout the enterprise. This process allows us to better adapt our approach for our collaborators and is yet another example of PMI's continuous improvement in action. We are eager to explore potential collaboration opportunities with the enterprise. To learn more about our work, including the Outcomes Minneapolis frameworks, please visit our Internet Department page on City Talk. There, you can also track our ongoing projects and partnerships in real time through our PMI project dashboard, gaining insights into our impact by collaborator, outcome area, and specific objectives. If departments have a project or initiative that they would like to explore with us, we encourage them to reach out through our collaboration request form. Once submitted, we will carefully review each project to ensure a strong alignment and the right fit for collaboration. For any further inquiries or more personalized support, please feel free to contact us directly at innovate@minneapolismn.gov. We look forward to learning more about enterprise interests and exploring how we can also partner together for greater impact. I would also like to extend my thanks to our incredible team for their hard work in putting this presentation together, as well as for their ongoing dedication to the work that is being showcased today. Their collaboration and commitment are key to our success and ability to remain responsive. So I would like to thank them for everything that they do. This concludes our presentation, and we can stand for any questions that you might have.
Thank you all so much. I'm going to go look in queue, and I see Vice Chair Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for this presentation, Ms. Hesbergen, and your whole team. I see the affordable homeownership collaborative effort that was given as an example here as a really great example of why we're digging deeper between departments. You know, these are, I can't envision them being things that would be measured well by either department alone. The impact is why those departments got together, right? And it's clearly a need. But I'm curious, just generally speaking, how will this help departments or people looking at it from the outside to adjust their work, right? Like, I see how it brings meaning and value to what we're already doing, but how might looking at a sheet like this, be adjusted to be like, oh, maybe we should cut that pilot program, frankly. It's not giving us the results that we were hoping it would based on the amount of money we're spending? Or how will this, do you foresee this help directors of departments to adjust their work?
Yeah, Chair Wansley, Vice Chair Palmisano, thank you very much for that question. I think this was a very great opportunity, as you mentioned, to really work hand in glove with departments, right? The department staff, the budget office really doing the work every day, identifying problems and trying to find a solution that could help meet those needs. I think on the face, my first is that I think as we consider our relationships with communities, right, especially marginalized communities and what we're doing, these case studies, and we're looking forward to doing more of these with departments, provides us the opportunity to really share the good work that we're doing. So I think to your question, yes, it's like, what are we doing? How are we making impact? Where is the money that you've invested going? What results did it have? I think to your second point, it gives extra information, right? Additional data as we're all considering what our tight, our budgets are set, right? We are not getting any extra money unless it comes through grants or some other program. And so when we look at the actual impact, right, and we consider how we're going to allocate money, was this an effective use of it, or is there a different program? Do we need to do something different to really understand how that impact and the investment, is it getting where we want it? Again, not to say that the programs aren't great programs, the people involved, the communities involved are not deserving, and has it aligned with what our fundamental goals are and the outcomes we're trying to meet. So I think it provides that information and also gives us the opportunity in more real time. I think you heard, for example, with the safety ambassadors, with that pilot, like looking at data in more real time to understand what tweaks could be made a little bit more iteratively, as opposed to running a program and then sort of waiting till the end to see what happened, to really give it its fair chance. But at the end of the day, program staff, department heads, will have more data at their fingertips to make informed decisions when they are choosing between two very difficult things, or multiple, right? Probably more than two very difficult things.
Thank you. And your mention that this will come out in the spring of this year makes it sound like it will absolutely be used in this year's budget process? Programming.
Yeah, for the regular programming. And we're also working with departments. So something that we talked about as well was the budgeting process. We are working with departments as well to collect the measures that they developed for their new budget proposals to understand how that is going. So again, we're on the 2-year budgeting process, but we're working with departments now to see, for some of them they were brand new, they're new programs, so they won't have a lot of historic data. But we are working with them to develop data collection, those who need our services, we're not forcing ourselves on them, but who need it, right, to work on data collection so that way they can report. And that is yet another piece of information and understanding, did we do what we thought we were going to do when we identified those measures. So again, departments have selected those, we do not select them, and they can sort of look at that information to understand, are we meeting the goals of this funding?
Thank you.
Director Hasberg, I do have a couple of questions. I'll start in the order of the slide. So going back to slide number 6, and it might be off on your end because I'm going by the presentation that was uploaded online. But looking at, and it might not actually, I know the comments were tied to the slide, but there was the update or progress update that was shared that 80% of the departments had at least undergone some visualization data process, either through formulation of an impact story or having a dashboard be created in consultation and through the support of PMI. I just wanted to get a status update on the remaining 20% and essentially what does that break down to for the specific departments, like which departments have not been the ones to transition into this phase yet?
Yeah, Chair Wansley, thank you for that question. I would first just like to take a step back and say that all departments and offices have been engaged in Outcomes Minneapolis, so they have all been through training, they have all gone through that sort of that workshop that was mentioned there. I think we also have where it did not make sense for frontline staff or sort of division directors, sort of that role to go in and identify measures. So I would say that they are on pause, but they're not, I think when they come back, and sort of have that capability to have their department head in place, that they are committed to re-engaging with us, and they're still talking with us. So I think it was to really avoid duplicating efforts, to go sort of want to know more. I'm happy to follow up in a memo, but I think it is to be productive with our time and to make sure that the efforts that they spend it's very productive.
Yeah, if for a staff memo, I at least want to know you name the city auditor, just more concretely what departments fall under that 20%. And you referenced, some of those departments struggle or pause because of a lack of leadership or department head. So again, what of those 20% is that actually a factor for? But yes, it was good to hear that all departments have had. So at least wanted to see what other departments kind of are in need or are absent of moving in or moving towards embracing this piece.
Yeah. And Chair Wansley, I just would say I would respectfully say that I don't think it's about embracing it. Again, reception has been very positive by all departments, and they're very interested in doing this. Department heads, the DCO, senior executive leadership on OPS, everyone, it was a resounding yes, of course, we're going to post these to the website. So I just would not say it's a reluctance. I think it has to do with limited capacity. And I do think the great work of this team in being able to be that consultant, right, to help develop the dashboards, get something that staff could react to, even in those mid-sized departments, has been helpful. And that we're very much looking forward to having things available in an accessible way to really help, again, tell the story of departments and really take that burden off of, data requests. I was in regulatory services. We were one of the first departments to post our violations and inspections publicly, right? Because we were getting slammed, right, a week with so many is public, right? And why not provide that tool to remove that barrier for someone to have to make a request and, wait a week or 2 weeks to get that. So again, I would just say that staff across the enterprise, department heads, everyone included, has been very interested and supportive of this. And so I think it's just, again, constraints and really wanting to be effective with staff time.
Sounds good. And again, just note that for the clerk's follow-up for a staff memo. And then next question is going to slide 10. This actually goes to a point that you raised for results for America. I did want to get clarity on, is this the pursuit of this as a technical assistance support, would this only be extended to the Office of Community Safety or all the departments under the Community Safety? I was really excited to see this as a potential option, especially in light, I know as we're going to get a presentation following you all's on this around just the lack of data collection that has happened specifically within Neighborhood Safety Department. It's good to see you mention the safety ambassadors, and I think OCS, specifically Director Harrington, you highlighted is really using this as a model for, implementing performance-based contracting and showing what that could look like. But I did want to get a sense of, would this technical, assistant provider just be isolated to OCS, or would that be a resource that all of the departments could access?
Yeah, Chair Wansley, thank you for your question. I would say, yes, again, we are in very early conversations with Results for America about what our scope of work may look like. They've shared with us, and again, happy to follow up as part of a staff memo, some of the work that they've done with other communities. I think what's really great in our preliminary conversations with them, it is very much I think what bespoke is the word, right? It's like, what are you trying to do? How can we help you given our experience and the resources, that we Results for America have. And so I think their general work revolves around budgeting, grant making, and direct services. So as that, we would want to cast our nets, right, as wide as possible, and would envision continuing our partnership with the Budget Office, right? We've worked as well with Pam, her team, and Kamal, right, in procurement to really understand what does it look like from a systems perspective. How can we bring these things that, yes, are very, I think, more top of mind given community safety and what Director Harrington is doing, but also when we think about building a data-driven culture, that is the whole enterprise, all city departments, all of our services. And really figuring out what are ways that we can help in that process. I think that in our early research, and Director Harrington again led this through a survey effort, there are not a lot of departments and contracts that are including measures. So again, I understand that we do have some top of mind, but that is very new for the city. And so I think we want to make sure that we approach that in a way where we've understood how it has been implemented in ways that have been successful. So the net is wide, and we do have the opportunity, as you mentioned, to start with contracts that happen to be community safety based. But we do see this as a larger area of support for the city.
No, that's good to hear. And yes, I hone in because staff immediately referenced OCS as being a really good place to start piloting, or at least it sounds like some of the best practices from this is being piloted through the safety ambassadors, and knowing we do have that newly funded FTE position in NSD for data analysis and evaluation. I was like, oh, this is great. Maybe this is another technical assistance resource that could support with that piece as they're working to integrate, it sounds like, performance-based metrics more into the contract process. So just wanted to get clarity on, like, was this just for one department? It's good to hear it's going to be extended throughout the entire enterprise. Do you have a sense of when you will be looking to enter or do a bidding process for some type of technical assistance provider around this performance-based contracting piece?
Yeah, Chair Wansley, right now I can't say that we have a definite timeline that I feel comfortable sharing with you. We have had a couple of preliminary conversations with Results for America and are having, I think there's either a call this week or next week to really dig into what that scope could look like. As you mentioned, it is bigger than just OCS. I think the opportunity has provided itself, given the very formal nature of the contracting process, to start at ground zero before we've implemented something, then needing to do contract modifications, right, and trying to get someone to sign something, right, when we already have a contract with them. So this is sort of the best, like, it's coming up at a very germane time. And I will say, I don't know, again, I may need to correct myself next time when we're here next quarter. Results for America is offering this this service, this technical assistance free, right, as a member of What Works Cities. This is a benefit that's extended to us, the city of Minneapolis, for having certified at silver 3 years ago. So we're excited. This is, again, a service that they offer. My understanding is there is no charge, so we would not see the need to go through a competitive RFP process, but we'll be able to use the services there after we refine a scope with them.
Okay, good clarity on that. I do want to, because I know this has come up with some other, would we still have to go through, I believe, still a gift acceptance process? Because essentially it sounds like they're in-kinding their services. And I know, again, like Ryan's company, for instance, also in-kinded OCS when they were doing some restructuring for that piece. And there was a gift acceptance process that had to happen. So just want to make sure we're also, the idea of just a company, even if we're already in an existing collaboration, like just making sure that we're able to do that in a way where.
Chair Wansley, I appreciate that. Again, as a member of a thing, that was my assumption, and we would be looking through what that process would be. Of course, we want to follow whatever that is. We're not just picking people to give us, free technical assistance. So we'll be more than happy to, double check with procurement and with the committee before we would, sign any, if there is even something to sign, but before we agree to something formally. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I would note that also just for a staff memo, just for follow-up of what that process would look like, because it's great if we can enter into a technical assistance provider with an expert on that and making sure we're able to do that in the best way possible and with our existing department staff support. Yeah. So with that, I did want to note too on, this is actually general, and it's getting to the release of Outcomes Minneapolis in the spring. Vice Chair Palmisano question made me also think, are we looking at all of, or have you all been supporting departments in doing any type of retroactive analysis? I'm hearing a lot of like forward thinking of, okay, we're going to develop new metrics because maybe those were not in place, or if there were metrics in place, they need to be reworked, retweaked. So I just wasn't sure if there is, okay, does that say anything about the retroactive piece?
Chair Wadsley, it does what it doesn't. So I think right now that is still in development. So that step 4 that you see under, understanding performance and potential opportunities, for change, right? Insights for action is what we are starting to develop. I think, again, the focus of the team over these very rapid, right, 10 months, was to get the first 3 steps going and to understand then what, again, data visualization would look like to then move into that piece. So I think we're starting to develop a workshop on what that would look like and analyzing the data, right, from the dashboard, for example, and sort of did it meet your baseline, your baselines and targets, right? Is this sort of what you were thinking was going to happen given the outcomes that you had? And really the role of our team, we're excited to look up other effective and leading practices, right, to share that, right? I think, again, understanding what may work well here, what departments may want to adapt, and really providing them with that information to make those decisions is what we see our role as, and that's what step 4 is looking to start stepping into. One of the things that you've heard from me before, probably maybe a year ago in my first presentation in March, we are looking to sort of understand how we can support more formally assessment and evaluation. I would say, sort of to get to your question, I think right now, as I mentioned, one of my first presentations, that would be a 2026 thing. I think I'm not comfortable saying that we are, doing strong program evaluation, right, for those who've gone through graduate school or have their experience there. So I do want to draw that distinction that we're not evaluating. We are, again, looking back at the data and providing insights that we see and sort of looking at trends. So evaluation, and I think that's also for those of you who have read the NYU Gaps and Assets report, right, that's a space that they have recommended PMI consider, right, looking into, and I think we had that on our radar as well, but really want to develop that strong foundation first. To also make sure that we're making those sort of evaluations and recommendations based on sound, strong, comprehensive data. And I think the enterprise, we need to give departments a chance more than a couple of months, right, before we come in and start, evaluating what they're doing. So that, again, step 4, we'll get into that based on the data that was collected, sort of that core point-in-time data, and then we are looking forward in 2026 to expand into sort of a more formal evaluation type of service.
No, that's good clarity to have, especially as we're thinking of, that would be the next round of a 2-year budgeting cycle, and I think that gets at the piece too of what are the programs that are existing that need to be revisited. And I think we've had a long conversation amongst this body around that, of just getting a stock of what do we currently have, because I think we get a snapshot typically during the budget process of what programs, usually new proposed programs that departments are looking to bring forward. And I think there has been, again, this dialogue of how are we even aligning that to metrics. So again, that's why we want to have this presentation, and glad that we're having this piece. But I think it is that retroactive evaluation and ongoing evaluation piece that a lot of us are like, oh, okay, like really wanting to see compliments and then getting, I completely understand you got to establish foundational components, but I think that is the biggest hurdle too of as we're looking through the budget process of just getting an understanding of where current programs stand in terms of even maybe some of the existing metrics that used to be set or are old or dated. So good to hear, or the reminded clarity around when that process will start. And then going to slide 8, I just had another question around that piece in terms of also just thinking through, or have you also talked about or discussed other ways in which that report, and actually no, this is answered through the release of this outcome, Minneapolis. I think often it's just like we hear the reporting happen through budget around these metrics. Is great. Now we have this spring release where we'll be able to get that much more proactively, like a comprehensive picture of these metrics for our departments that have participated, and then the dashboards that you can even see respectively. I was just thinking through of, especially in light of that data practice and data management presentation, have there been other ways in which you've seen the data that you all are helping departments really think through how they qualify and quantify, how they can do more innovative reporting around that, in addition to some of these components that you're already helping them walkthrough that you listed in this presentation.
Yeah, Chair Wansley, thank you for that question. That's one of the things in talking with Budget Director DeCenza that we're, again, looking forward to really understanding what that can look like as we move forward. Really, this first set and sort of what's listed up there is the process that we used with the departments was getting a firm process, right, and getting that set with departments, gaining their trust and working with them on helping select measures that are going to be reflective of if they're meeting the outcomes that they have. I think we have some time, right? Director DeCenza and I have talked about, right, meeting this quarter or next quarter, really talk about what that looks like to your question and sort of how can we do things and show things in a different way. I think the Budget Office will be the first to tell you that OpenGov is kind of cumbersome to use. It doesn't give you the, great information. And so what does that look like? I think they're really wanting to spend still 2025. We're less than a year, under our belts. We just did this budget process, started in the fall. So really understand what that could look like in, opportunities to build. So I think, again, that would be something where we will continue this process, work on reporting, right, so that information can be available. So that is sort of, we all have a shared understanding of how, based on the measures that were selected, programs, did or did not do, and then figuring out longer term how that fits into all of the budgeting process.
Great. That's all the questions that I had, and I see Vice Chair Palmisano back in queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm sorry in advance if I'm going to ask some of your same questions just in a different way. We've clearly come a long way. You have a whole team of very smart people here today. Back several years ago, staff in then the coordinator's office took down what was then Results Minneapolis, right, in an effort to retool it and reinvent it. And some days I'm worried we never really got it back up and running. Do basic data dashboards still exist for all departments? I'm particularly bad at navigating this city website. Some people find it easier. I find it less intuitive. But many people, and sometimes me, we just want a basic set of metrics, right? It helps set context for like when I'm introducing the health department commissioner at a ward forum. Here's all the things that we do, or put something in context for here's the number of miles that we plow when we do a snow emergency, or here's the number of miles of roads that we repave in a given year. Does that still exist somewhere? Is there an easy way to access that from what you're building when dynamic visualization showcasing progress sounds a bit much? We just need like existing data.
Chair Wansley, Vice Chair Palmisano, thank you for that question. I think no, it does not currently, it never sort of was put back up after Results Minneapolis was taken down. I think there were various hurdles. Again, while I was with the city, was not in the department, so don't want to speak for that staff. But in coming from a mid-sized department who was helping to oversee that work, I think it was just very, very difficult, the sort of data part, both in what the systems allowed at that time and the capacity of staff. Again, not every department has an analyst to be doing what was requested. And at that time, again, the team was very small. Right, I think there were maybe 4, maybe 5 people who
I think less.
Who were trying to do that and did not have the capacity to be providing the depth of support that we are providing. So I think to your question, yes, it might be a little bit of a snazzier way, right? Dynamic visualization to showcase progress. I think that each dashboard is going to look different. Some are selecting more complex looking charts that I think are still easy to understand, but at its at its core. Yes, we believe that in what we've designed with departments looking at what those other communities are doing, in the United States, that this provides a way to give you that. So like here, again, for the draft civil rights, it's a bar chart, right? It's not some crazy looking statistical chart like a box plot. It's a line chart. And then again, it provides that context, which we think is really important, that the department is going to be able to provide, right? And I think as these will be updated, at least as we look at this first round annually, because we want the measures to be pretty perennial, right? Not just change them every year. We'll give departments also the opportunity to sort of talk about the why as well. So these will be, dynamic and we'll edit them. So there are things like, different types of charts. This is getting back to it. I think what's different is it provides more information, and is focused around the way in which the department has organized its services, its divisions, and its impact to community.
Thank you, and I will get used. I will change. I will get used to seeing things this way. It's good to see, and with this one example, I assume every department then you'll still be able to see. Here's how many, cases, problem cases were submitted to any particular department, and here's how here's the time to resolution, and I wasn't quite seeing the efficiency, effectiveness. Will we still get like the times?
Yeah,
You
so
know, somebody submits a reg services complaint. Will we still get the average time to resolution?
Yeah, that's Chair Wansley, Vice Chair Palmisano. I think, again, the departments for this, looking at their core services, have been empowered to select their own measures. So I will not say for any department, for all departments that have a field division, we told them they needed to collect SLA response data.
Service data. Yep.
Okay, so again, many of them have, when they think about what's core to their business, right, is to your example, right, we're picking up the trash on time, right, we don't have we have a set number of missed collections. It happens, right? And again, I don't know what Public Works' data is, but here's what it is. Here's what we are comfortable with, given that we know it happens, right? What we are doing, and so again, did not plan to talk about it in this presentation, and we're focused more on what's been completed. So I've also talked to you about what is that city stat-S type of model, where we look across on themes and sort of see how are we doing as a whole, right? As an enterprise. So I think that may be more as to sort of what I hear you talking about, and so that, for example, could take SLA data. What are we seeing across, right, different departments and different services? For my experience as a resident who has trash pickup, gets my all these other things, right? So that is also in the works, and we've talked about that will happen in 2026. We need to have firm data first from the departments here, and then understand what that may look like in designing it, to then ask for more data. So spoiler alert, department heads.
I think the most important way that you have answered my question is that you said any outward-facing department will have service-level data available, and we will be tracking it.
Some of them, I'm sorry, so they may. I did not, right, as PMI, we did not.
I know you don't control it.
I know. We did not tell them. I do not. I'm happy to sort of, if you come back to you on that at what percent do. Many of them did, just because when they think about what's core to their service, what is satisfaction, how do they know they're doing a good job? Because they're collecting SLA data.
Sure.
They're collecting. But we did not force them to do it. I don't know who has a field division.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
That answers my question and more. Thanks.
No problem. I don't see anyone else in queue, so Director Hasbergen, thank you so much for this pretty elaborate presentation, and thank you to your staff as well. I'm pretty sure we'll get an update in the next quarter around where we're at on this, especially in anticipation to budget. So thank you all again. And I will ask the clerks to file this report and receive it as well. Next, and our final item on today's agenda is going to be receiving an update on the administration's response to the Neighborhood Safety Department's Violence Prevention Contracts Legislative Directive. Colleagues, you might be aware, this body passed this around September of last year, and it was set to have a response by October 7th. It's February, but we have been able to get a presentation through agreement from the Office of Community Safety Leadership for us to be able to get information on our violence prevention procurement processes, and really look forward to this. And also this comes following the presentation that we received from some of our national technical assistance, or some of the national leading violence prevention organizations who came to Minneapolis in August, who also shared some themes around best practices for procurement. So just getting a sense of what the lay of the land is for us here locally. So with that, I will invite Deputy Director Leah Lakes to come up and present.
Chair Wansley, thank you. Council members, my name is Leah Lakes. I am the Deputy Director of Neighborhood Safety. Thank you for your questions about the evolution of our procurement practice for violence prevention contracts since 2002. For background, the Neighborhood Safety Department transitioned to the Office of Community Safety in early 2023. The department was previously the Office of Violence Prevention in the Health Department. And looking back to 2022 and early 2023, we've identified several historical changes to our procurement process. These included insufficient documentations from contract holders, lack of transparency in contract details, subjective evaluation processes, and inadequate budget itemizations. We also saw issues with RFPs being reused and not updated with necessary clarification or improvements. And I'm pleased to report that we've implemented comprehensive reforms to address these challenges. Our new procurement framework includes several improvements, including enhanced evaluation processes with pre-evaluation meetings and standardized trainings for reviewers, transparent vendor communications through post-evaluation debriefings, strengthened compliance measures through collaboration with grant staff and legal teams, increased oversight of contract negotiations and documentation requirements. We've also implemented stricter financial controls and documentation requirements, including detailed itemization requirements of all reimbursement requests, enhanced reporting requirements aligned with contract scope of work, strict payment processing protocols that exclude informal payment methods, performance-based payment structure that only compensates for work that's actually performed. In addition, we've built a robust staff to support this invoicing process. Since August of 2024, we've added an AD of compliance position who oversees the contracting process. She has a staff reporting to her to help support her work. As of November 2024, we've also added an AD of Finance to the NSD team, who is supporting our budgeting and invoicing work. She also has an employee reporting to her to support this body of work. During the 2025 budget cycle, City Council provided NSD with another position to help support the contracting and invoicing work. We are currently in the hiring process for this position and expect the person who was selected during this hiring process to begin in March. These improvements have significantly enhanced our transparency, accountability, and effectiveness in our procurement process. We continue to refine these practices to ensure the best possible outcomes for our community. Our department has developed a comprehensive framework that integrates local, state, and federal guidelines to ensure the highest standards of accountability and effectiveness. First, regarding local procurement practices, we strictly adhere to City of Minneapolis procurement procedures. This ensures transparency and integrity throughout the contracting process. Our procurement processes undergo rigorous evaluation to maintain alignment with city standards. Second, we maintain strict compliance with city guidelines, as well as with federal and state guidelines where appropriate, particularly to CRF 200 and relevant Minnesota statutes. These standards are crucial for maintaining fairness and transparency in our procurement process. We pay special attention to Appendix 4 of the Uniform Guidance, which provides specific procurement standards for federal funds used in violence prevention programs. Third, we have incorporated National Institute of Government Purchasing guidelines into our operations. These guidelines help ensure professional and ethical conduct throughout our procurement process, effectively minimizing conflict of interest and maintaining impartial decision-making. Finally, where grant funding is involved, we followed the National Grant Management Association standards for federal grant compliance. This includes continuous evaluation of outcomes to maximize our impact on violence prevention funding and ensure responsible use of taxpayer dollars. These integrated practices have strengthened our procurement process and enhanced our ability to select and manage effective violence prevention programs. We continue to refine these practices based on emerging best practices and lessons learned. Additionally, our procurement practices are informed by leading organizations in violence prevention and community safety. We closely follow the guidance in Cure Violence Global and the National Network for Safe Communities, NNSC, regarding best practices in violence prevention, programming, and procurement. Our approach is also aligned with strategic local frameworks, including recommendations outlined in Minneapolis Safe and Thriving Communities Report, and in the future, we will use the recently published Minneapolis Community Safety Ecosystem Assess and Gap Analysis Findings and Action Plan, which was developed by the policing projects at NYC School of Law to inform our contract language and RFP processes where appropriate. These documents provide valuable guidance on effective contracting and procurement practices specific to our local context. These additional frameworks help ensure our procurement processes are not only administrated soundly, but also align with proven approaches in violence prevention and community safety. Next, I'll address the question related to any changes that have been implemented in the department policy and standard operating procedures for procurement and contract administration since 2022. We have intensified our focus on strengthening data reporting processes with our vendors to ensure contracted services are being delivered as specified and that our funded programs are effectively contributing to neighborhood safety in Minneapolis. While implementing these enhanced reporting requirements, we recognize the potential impact on smaller vendors who may have limited staff and resources. To address this, we are committed to providing comprehensive support to our vendors during this transition. We understand that adapting to new reporting processes requires adjustment, and we are dedicated to offering thorough training and assistance through the implementation process. Our goal is to maintain high standards while ensuring all vendors, regardless of size, can successfully meet these improved requirements. To improve our contracting practices, we have made sure we are working closely with procurement staff, technical providers, and the city attorney's office during the writing of the RFP applications and contracts so that we are following best practices and all legal requirements. I'm pleased to share that we have enhanced our recruitment process for reviewers of RFP applications to ensure that those who are reviewing and scoring RFP applications have the highest level of expertise and are trained in our evaluation procedures. We take the time to reach out to national experts, such as NNSC, to recruit them for the review process. This strategic inclusion has strengthened our assessment capabilities significantly. To maintain consistency and thoroughness across all evaluations, we require all reviewers to participate in comprehensive pre-evaluation training sessions. These are especially important because we do not reuse reviewers on a regular basis to reduce bias. These trainings are designed to equip our reviewer panels with the necessary tools and understanding to conduct thorough and equitable assessment of all applications. Our grant staff and legal team are now more actively involved in all contract negotiations to maintain compliance with federal, city, and uniform guidance. We also have strengthened our collaborative approach, working closely with procurement staff, technical providers, and the city attorney's office in all stages of the contracting process. This has resulted in an enhanced service review process and a more rigorous documentation requirement for invoices. Regarding financial oversight, I want to emphasize that all payments must now be made through approved methods, such as money orders or payroll documentation. Based on recommendations from the City Attorney's Office, we no longer accept payments through peer-to-peer platforms. Additionally, NSD staff will only provide payment for work that has been actually performed and verified. Our department does not cover cost related to incentives such as gift cards, prizes, or entertainment expenses per city policy. I'm also pleased to announce several new initiatives designed to support our vendors and set them up for success following the new requirements. We now debrief with vendors following the RFP evaluation process to go over their specific application once the RFP scoring information is made public. This provides the vendor with the opportunity to receive valuable feedback and to improve the transparency of our procurement process. This helps our vendor learn what they do well and the areas that they can improve on for the next RFP cycle. This is also designed to build relationships between the vendor and NSD staff members and provide an opportunity for mutual feedback so we can achieve continuous improvement in this process. We are also in the process of significantly upgrading our guidance material for the invoice process. This includes detailed documentation, such as invoicing introduction for contractors, comprehensive contractor job aid, clear submission requirements, updated general ledger templates for 2025, and a new mileage reimbursement form. To ensure these resources are effectively utilized, we are implementing regular in-person office hours where NSD staff will be available to address questions and concerns. Additionally, we will be introducing mandatory virtual training sessions for all contractors at the beginning of a contract, organized by program area. These sessions will provide detailed instructions on invoicing procedures, proper use of job aids, and form completions. We expect contractors to review all provided materials before attending these training sessions. Finally, we are offering virtual one-on-one coaching sessions where NSD staff will meet with incumbent vendors to discuss various contract-related topics. Vendors can sign up online for these targeted coaching sessions based on their specific needs. These improvements demonstrate our commitment to supporting our vendors while maintaining the highest standards of service delivery to our community. I would like to address our approach to contract customization and management. Working closely with the City Attorney's Office, we implemented target modifications to our contracts where necessary. Our collaborative work with the City Attorney Office has resulted in the inclusion of several criteria contract providers that enhance our accountability and clarity. These include clear definitions of ineligible expenses and invoice requirements, specific protocols for budget revisions and required documentation, mandatory contract funding disclosures, guidelines for city logo usage and public events, comprehensive site visits and contract monitoring procedures, requirements in accountability compliance, strict adherence to child labor laws, and enhanced reporting requirements. These provisions ensure our contracts not only meet legal standards, but also provide the necessary framework for the effective program implementation and oversight. I would like to introduce Kamal Buchanan for procurement to describe the city-wide duration of contracts.
Welcome to the floor, Pam. Pam
Good.
show begins.
Yes, good morning, Chair Wansley and members of the committee. My name is Pam Fernandez, and I'm the Director of Procurement within Finance Department. Kamal wanted me to do this one, so I'll do this myself. So here, like in the legislative directive, you asked for knowing, what is the contract duration for the citywide contract. So I'll give you a few examples of how that goes. First of all, standard contracts, which are used for professional services contracts under 175. The contract duration, as approved by the council for that form, is 5 years. However, it could, depending on what we are buying under that particular contract, it could go for anywhere from 1 to 5 years. And if it exceeds 5 years, then it'll come to the council for an approval to go beyond those 5 years. So that's why sometimes you see a small contract coming here, but it is trying to extend that period to over 5 years if some project is not finished or something like that. Before it comes to the council, the permanent review committee also looks at that one. So there is double check before it comes here. Another type of contract is the master consulting pool contracts. This is where one RFP is issued, but then many contracts or many contractors are selected under that process. So when we do, and we call it a master consulting pool contract, and when that happens, the term of the contract will be limited to 3 years. And these are for as needed services or for example, all the violence prevention type contracts are, mostly they can go only up to 3 years. If it exceeds those 3 years, then it'll be coming here, PRC, everything like that. The reason why we are stopping those at 3 years is because we want that RFP to come out again at the end of the 3 years, so new firms, nonprofit organizations can apply for it. Individual contracts resulting from an RFP process, for example, we just need only one contractor from an RFP that is issued. It'll go for 5 years. It doesn't have to go for 5 years, but it could go up to 5 years if there is only one contractor for that service. Contract for technology systems, like our finance system, HR system, where we spent a lot of money to put that in place. Usually, until the mayor and council is ready with another replacement, budget for that system, the current system could go on. For example, the finance system is at almost 20 years now. So contracts, the next one is contract resulting from a bid process. Again, this could go anywhere from 1 to 5 years, depending on what the city and the contractor agreed for. So bidding contracts, because they are based on material prices and things like that, in many of the vendors are not able to give us a 5-year contract. So they'll say we'll do this for 1 year with optional extensions of another 4 years or 3 years. Contracts for capital projects, these are the engineering and consulting services and construction project. It could go until the project is completed. For example, if we are building a large building, and then we need that architectural engineering company as well as the construction contractor to be under a contract until that project is completed. So those are the, some of the different types of contracts and duration citywide. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Wansley, council members, my name is Leah Lakes, Department of Neighborhood Safety, and I'll continue. I would like to provide an overview of our contract durations across various violence prevention initiatives, demonstrating alignment with city procurement policies. As you know, the City of Minneapolis procurement policy stipulates that contract durations, including amendments, must not exceed 5 years for single award and 3 years for multiple awards unless approved by council. I'm pleased to report that our current contracting portfolio adheres to these guidelines. Let me break down the current contract statistics. Our Minneapolis Strategic Outreach Initiative maintains 5 contracts with an average term of 35.6 months. Blueprint Approved Institute operates 5 contracts, averaging 12 months. Our Group Violence Intervention Program, both youth and adult, encompass 6 contracts with an average duration of 21 months. And our Community Trauma Response Services are delivered through 12 contracts, averaging 12 months. Violence Prevention Initiative comprises our largest category of 25 contracts, averaging 12 months for general fund contracts and 7 months for ARPA-funded programs. Our miscellaneous contracts, totaling 7, average for 28 months in duration. Please note that this does not include contracts for technical assistance and training, MOUs, or pending non-public contract information. These figures demonstrate our commitment to maintaining appropriate contract terms while ensuring program continuity and effectiveness. We carefully monitor these durations to maintain compliance with city policies while maximizing program impact. Looking at our 1-year contracts, we see that 100% of our contracts in Blueprint Approved Institute, Community Trauma Response, and Violence Prevention programs are 1 year in duration. For our 2-year contracts, we have 50% of our group violence intervention programs and 100% of our miscellaneous contracts operating on this timeline. Finally, regarding 3-year contracts, we have 100% of Minneapolis Strategic Outreach Initiative contracts and 50% of group violence intervention programs operating at this longer time frame. I'd like to address the important question regarding invoice processing times for our violence prevention contracts compared to citywide averages. Looking at data from 2021 through the first half of 2024, we can observe some notable trends. In 2021, our average processing time was 17 days compared to the citywide averages of 21 days. In 2022, we saw processing times of 23 days compared to 21 days citywide. In 2023, after neighborhood safety transitioned from public health as the Office of Violence Prevention to the Neighborhood Safety Department under the Office of Community Safety, our average processing time was 21 days compared to a citywide average of 18 days. For the first half of 2024, we see processing times of 34 days compared to 24 days across other departments. While historically our processing times have been relatively consistent with citywide averages, the recent increase in processing times in 2024 is a direct reflection of our department's increased scrutiny of invoices and improved compliance with city policy. As of today, February 18th, 2025, NSD now has 4 staff members who are supporting the invoice and contract work. This improved staffing support is critical to our mission to make sure vendor submissions are getting reviewed thoroughly and invoices to vendors are getting paid in a timely manner. To support the extra time it takes to do comprehensive reviews of submissions provided to us by vendors, City Council has added an additional staff member to NSD to support invoicing and compliance work for 2025. We have identified a person for this position, and we are anticipating that they will start supporting invoicing and contracting work within NSD in March of 2025. To improve compliance with new requirements, NSD has implemented comprehensive vendor support, and we expect that these measures will reduce our processing times in the coming months. We have broken up the different bodies of work for this question as it will provide a better picture of the work that we do. One of the bodies of work that NSD has contracts with is for community trauma response initiatives. This initiative is designed to support our community members affected by violence. The Neighborhood Safety Department recognizes that violence creates rippling effects throughout our community. Its impact extends far beyond the immediate incident, affecting families, neighbors, and entire neighborhoods. Our approach acknowledges this reality and responds with a comprehensive, public health-based strategy. Our community trauma response contracts provide services to our communities that operate on 3 critical levels: preventative measures to address potential violence before it occurs, responsive interventions at the first sign of risk, restorative support for those who have experienced trauma from violence. Through the work done with community trauma response contracts, we've established partnerships with local organizations that have provided community-driven support for survivors. These partnerships ensure that help comes from within the community itself, from people who understand the local context and needs. These initiatives offer immediate support services, long-term counseling resources, and community healing spaces. We believe that by addressing trauma directly, we can help break the cycle of violence and build a more resilient Minneapolis. The community trauma response contracts shown here start September 1st, 2024, and end August 31st, 2025. You can see here the organizations that were awarded. Next, I would like to provide information on our violence prevention contracts. Our violence prevention strategy operates on multiple levels, working upstream to address root causes before they become serious issues. We have identified 4 key strategic priorities: violence reduction through direct intervention, particularly focusing on youth and families at risk; family strengthening to create stable, supportive environments where children can thrive; community resilience building to address root causes such as poverty and lack of educational opportunities; enhanced support services to ensure resources are accessible to those who need them most. Our preventative services encompass evidence-based programs such as family support initiatives and early intervention strategies. These programs are designed to build individual and community resilience before challenges escalate into crisis. By investing in prevention now, we can reduce the likelihood of some of these negative outcomes of violence, such as incarceration, homelessness, and dropping out of school. Organizations we funded for violence prevention services in our communities fell into 4 categories. those that were funded up to $255K, those funded up to $150K, those funded up to $75K, and those funded up to $50K. This model of breaking funding into these categories is what was used by the health department when the Department of Neighborhood Safety used to be the Office of Violence Prevention back when it was still a part of the health department. In the future, we will not be using this method of awarding contracts based off of funding categories. Instead, we will be using a master contract to replace the funding category model so that we can be more responsive and flexible in responding to community safety needs. The current violence prevention contracts you see here all end in May of 2025. Blueprint Approved Institute represents a strategic investment in our community's future by focusing on capacity building for local organizations. This initiative helps community-based organizations develop the essential skills and resources that they need to effectively address safety challenges at the neighborhood level. The primary goal of Blueprint Approved Institute is twofold: provide comprehensive training to individuals and small organizations dedicated to violence prevention, create sustainable funding pathways to support their vital work in our communities. By empowering these grassroots organizations, we strengthen our community's ability to prevent violence through local trusted partners who understand the unique challenges and opportunities in their neighborhood. We have successfully awarded contracts to 5 organizations. These contracts run through April of 2024 through May of 2025. Each of these organizations brings unique strength and capabilities to our community safety effort. These strategic investments will help enhance our neighborhood safety initiatives through community-based partnerships. Our group violence intervention and youth group violence intervention approach represents a collaborative effort between multiple stakeholders, including GVI vendors, Hennepin County Parole, NSD staff, NNSC, and law enforcement to engage with Minneapolis residents who have been involved in violent crimes. Throughout 2024 and continuing into 2025, we have maintained and strengthened this vital work. This work receives crucial support from multiple members, including the National Network of Safety Communities, NNSC, who provides extensive guidance, such as weekly consultation meetings, support in program management, recruitment, hiring, and training, and RFP process guidance and support. Our current contracts for GVI, YGVI, are set to expire March 31st. We are actively engaging in the process of starting new contracts, hopefully to begin April 1st. This timing is crucial to ensure uninterrupted service delivery to our community. We have 6 key organizations providing vital services to our community through multi-year contracts extending from 2023 to 2025. All of these contracts end May 31st, 2025. These contracts demonstrate our substantial commitment to community safety. The Cure Violence model is a groundbreaking approach to violence prevention that our department has incorporated into our Minneapolis Strategic Outreach Initiative. The Cure Violence model approaches violence through a public health lens, treating it as an infectious disease that spreads through community interactions. This innovative perspective has transformed how we understand and address violence in urban settings. This model operates on 3 key principles. First, it identifies and works with at-risk individuals who may be transmitters of violent behaviors. Second, it emphasizes early interventions to prevent violent incidences before they occur. Third, it focuses on stopping the further spread of violence within communities. What makes this model particularly relevant to our work is it is a relationship-based approach. Unlike traditional emergency response systems, our community violence interrupters operate through established relationships and trust networks. Their effectiveness comes from their deep connections within the community and their ability to identify and respond to potential violence based on various information sources that they've cultivated. Since its initial pilot in Chicago in 2008, this model has demonstrated significant success across the United States and internationally. It has proven adaptable to various forms of violence, from gang-related incidents to domestic violence and school safety concerns. We have established significant partnerships with 5 key organizations to conduct strategic outreach initiatives. These contracts started May 15th of 2021 and end March 31st, 2025. These long-term contracts demonstrate our commitment to sustainable community safety solutions through established community partners. Each organization brings unique expertise and deep understanding and credible community connections to our comprehensive safety strategy. NSD has awarded several other contracts as well that did not fit into the categories above. The length of these contracts varies based on the contract execution date, but all end on December 31st, 2025. I'd next like to share some important demographic information about our vendor partnerships for 2024. Per procurement policy, NSD is not permitted to collect information on certain classifications, such as race and gender. So NSD does not collect or store data on demographics for our vendors. However, the city does allow vendors to provide this information to procurement voluntarily. And in 2024, NSD maintained 60 unique contracts. Of these, 15 organizations voluntarily provided demographic information based off of their ownership structure. While this represents only a portion of our total vendors, the data collected voluntarily offers valuable insights to those organizations. 87% are BIPOC-owned businesses, 33% are women-owned businesses, and 7% are veteran-owned businesses. It is important to note that some of our contract holders qualify under multiple categories, demonstrating intersectional representation in our vendor partnership. While this data represents only those vendors who voluntarily shared their demographic information, it does reflect our commitment to partnering with diverse businesses in our community. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Associate Deputy Leah Lace. I do have a few folks in queue. First is Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Chair Wansley, and thank you so much, Deputy Director Lakes. I appreciate this presentation because you came before us a couple weeks ago with the presentation, and I was like, where are the answers to these questions? I was clearly confused about the action that was before me because this answered a lot of questions that I had. So thank you so much for this presentation. I do have a couple more questions. One is about the timeline you give grantees for invoice return. So what is the timeline? When someone is a vendor and you all talk to them about the contract and the process, what's the timeline that you give them for, what's the expectation and timeline for receiving payment?
Good question. Thank you, Chair Wansley and Councilmember Vita. We are required to pay vendors 35 days after they submit the invoices. So that 35 days is what we're expected to do. If we need to return an invoice to them to make corrections, that 35 days starts over again. So then we have to wait 35 more days, which is why that vendor support is such a key component of being successful, so that we can have those timely payments happening, and so we don't have as much back and forth communication between the vendor. They know what to do, they're filling out those invoices correctly, so we don't have that 35-day time mark starting over again.
So are vendors, is it communicated to vendors that the clock starts over? Like if I put my invoice in on the final day and something gets returned, then I have a new 35-day window for the invoice to maybe be paid out. Is that communicated to people in advance?
Chair Wansley, Councilmember Vita, it is communicated in advance. I can let procurement speak more to their communication on a wide city level.
Thank you.
Chair Wansley, Councilmember Vita. So all our vendors, on a regular basis, it's 35 days. However, all our small businesses that are part of the Target Market program, they have a 10-day turnaround period. So Target Market program vendors, as well as all the nonprofit organizations, which most of neighborhood safeties vendors are falling under, they have a 10-day turnaround period. If everything is submitted and it's all good to go, then it's just a matter of department taking that time to go through those invoices, and it'll get paid as soon as it's approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thank you for that. I think I really appreciate this answer, because I think what I've heard the most about people who are really annoyed by the process and not feeling like they receive payment on time is that they are small vendors. They don't have money in the bank to sustain payroll over, 35 days could go over into like 3 to 4 pay periods for some of these groups, right? And so if you don't have the money and this is happening, then I think people just get really frustrated with the process as a whole. So I'm always looking for ways for us to communicate better, but also to look at how we better support these vendors, knowing that they may not have the financial foundation in place to hold over for 30 to 45 days, especially if that cycle continues again. Which leads to my next question. Do we have any advance payments that we give to any of these groups?
We do not.
Okay.
We do not.
All right. So no groups get advance payments, or they don't have an opportunity to maybe have some money in the bank to hold over. They're really just kind of starting from that first invoice period.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank you, Deputy Director, for this presentation. I'm sure after processing, I'll have a lot more questions, and I'll have someone from my office reach out to set up a meeting. I think it's really good information, and thank you, Chair Wansley, for this legislative directive. It does answer a lot of questions that people have asked over the past few years.
No problem. Thank you. And then I am next. So I do have a couple of questions in queue. So starting with slide 3. So just for clarity too, because I've been trying to find the legal settlement from the Copala lawsuit for a while now. And just clarity, are these provisions that have been established tied to the provisions that were also mandated in that legal settlement from that lawsuit?
Chair Wansley, that's correct. There are.
Okay.
They are included, yes.
Okay, so this largely came from the legal settlement, not necessarily from staff, like proactively. I just want to make sure the timeline of things within the legal settlement, and also which kind of came before, and kind of the chicken and the egg situation, yeah.
Chair Wansley, good question. The answer is a little bit of a both. Chicken and egg is correct. It is mandated legally from the lawsuit, and also our compliance staff who started in after the lawsuit are also very ambitious. So the good governance that we are striving towards in NSD is legally required and internally motivated.
Right. And just clarity too, and maybe CAO Abelson, is there a way for us to receive a copy of the legal settlement now that it's settled, just to get a sense of which of these provisions? Because I know there were some very specific things that I, at least in that closed session, looks very familiar to what's mandated here, but I don't recall us receiving like a specific copy of that. Is there a way to get that?
Sure, Committee Chair Wansley, I will email it to you.
Awesome. And if you could share with the full committee, that way everyone can have it. Thank you so much. That said, too, I did see the piece or what component here includes the auditing, because one thing that I do recall from the lawsuit, too, is it does require that repeated or more frequent auditing. So where does that component fit under these specific brackets?
Chair Wansley, the specific auditing is being done by a different department. I don't know specifically what, but we have started those conversations. We are in the beginning stages of getting audited right now by the city. And then I would have to get back to you on the more details of the internal auditing.
Yes. If we can note that for a staff memo. I know I've watched the audit committee meetings for a while now, and I think NSD always has like a asterisk of we're getting to in terms of their work plan. So just getting a sense of where's the department at in terms of working with the auditor's office and advancing whatever work plan you all create to advance the audit of the office. So that would be a good follow-up question to know for staff. And then I also want to make sure that I know this LD focused on the contracts that goes through the competitive and RFP process. Are these provisions also in place for those that do not go through that process? So I'm thinking of the 175,000 and under. How are we making sure there's robust oversight and basically accountability for those bids that meet that financial criteria?
Chair Wansley, that's an excellent question. I can get back to that in a memo.
Okay. Yep. So I'll note that too for the memo. And then I did want to also ask on slide 5, because this also gets in some of the questions in terms of the best practices that we heard from the national providers who were here or organizations, and what also prompted this legislative directive. So I know I also have heard from some of our partners in terms, and I even raised this with our city attorneys and the Public Health and Safety Committee. Was the lawsuit also the reason why we phased out the client reimbursement process along, just starting there? Because I know there's other government agencies that do still have that in place because they see it as a way to support the administration of these programs in terms of, I know in the past, some have been, for instance, someone is need of a hotel because they might be a target for gun violence. And some of our partners have had the ability through that provision to do or provide that hotel support. But from my understanding, without that provision, that's no longer there. So I just wanted to get a sense of, was that also a provision that we had to remove because of that legal settlement?
Chair Wansley, I don't know if procurement knows the answer to that question because that sounds specific to the lawsuit. I can have them address it on a citywide basis, but specific to the lawsuit, I would have to get back to you on that one.
Or if I'm just more interested in terms of, and I raised this again several months ago in the Public Health and Safety Committee last year, why did the department decide to phase out the client reimbursement components of the contracts that used to be there to support providers? And I do recall the former director mentioning that that was the advice of the city attorneys. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Chair Wansley, Council members, Shanique Rumecki, Associate Director of Compliance. I think what you're referring to is the public purpose doctrine. Is that what you're referring to?
Maybe it's connected. There was a specific clause around client service reimbursements, though, because I know this also exists at the county, and apparently it also was a provision that we had here. So it could be tied to that, but from my understanding, when former Director Nelson Brown referenced it, she mentioned the city attorneys advised to phase that out. So that's why I'm asking for clarification.
Chair Wadsley, if we could respond to that in a memo, then we
Yeah.
can make sure we're specifically talking about the.
Okay.
I might be able to help with this question. Good morning. Chair Wansley, Todd Barnett, Commissioner of Community Safety. There, I think what you are referring to is public purpose. There are two things that were going on. One is that there was opera funding that was available that was very liberal with what you could use it for. When that funding went away, the funding that Department of Neighborhood Safety was using then was more coming out of the city funding, which got us to more of the public purpose. As you know, the county is more of it is sort of that social services provider, and we're not. So when it comes to public purpose, I think what Director Nelson Brown was referring to, and I think I remember this conversation, is around what can you use that money for? So when the funds went away from the federal government and you look at public purpose, we can use those funds, city funds, when there's an emergency. So to your point about there was a shooting and we want to relocate someone to save, to put them in a safe place, that was considered an emergency. When you look at client services in like, hey, this person's been with me for 6 months, we want to celebrate their birthday, or we want to celebrate that they got a new job. We can't do that. We can't pay for that because it's not public purpose. Eric Nelson did a much better job at explaining this at one point, but you can't, under the city's policies and things, you can't use the funds for an individual, but you can use the funds for public purpose. And maybe our city attorney here, Mr. Abelson, can explain it better, but the two things that were going on was loss of the federal funding, and then really determining what we can use those city dollars for. So hopefully that explains some of what was going on. All of it was happening at the same time when Director Nelson Brown said she had to confer with the city attorney. The other thing that I will add is what we started to do, it was mentioned at another committee, is that internally, from the advice of the city attorney, there's a group that's gotten together to really work out what is public purpose for NSD and how that money can be used so that we can have a clear guidance for our vendors and providers, because that hasn't been provided. Because I think there is some confusion on both sides, and so we're working to do that. I don't know the timeline, but I know they're working on that.
It would be good to get a follow-up on the timeline, only because most of the services that I think many of our vendors do provide, especially if you're talking about GBI and YGBI, which we're going to be considering, it is the piece around having to relocate maybe a victim who is not safe, and getting clarity of, is that still allowable or not, based off of,
I think we know some of those clear emergencies, but I think what happens is what can we pay for ongoing versus having to refer someone to a service. So, you can put someone up in a hotel for their safety, but really at what point is it not an emergency anymore? If that makes sense. Just trying to there's some gray area that we just want to get some clarity on. But the emergencies are clear. I think we have some clear guidance on the emergency piece.
Okay, that is
But
clear.
I'll try to get a timeline for when this group is meeting again and when that can be provided.
That would be helpful. And I think that also goes with slide 12 to a certain extent of thinking of some of the providers, that's wrong. I'm looking at where are the ones with slide E. Where are the technical assistance providers? Oh, slide 6. And thinking of some of the national providers and thinking through ways in which they could help. And I didn't see them listed, like North Point, for instance, I believe, and also Next Step was not listed in the contracts piece, but knowing North Point, for my understanding, was at some point in contract with the city to provide some of those referral-based services, and getting a sense of like why that wasn't reflected here, because I think that is like getting into that too of like how do we have those referral-based agencies or partners at the table so that you are able to say, okay, you can pass that on. But yes, I wanted to get clarity on why, yes, both actually Next Step, North Point, some of those providers weren't here, because it seems like it would have fit within the timeline of this LD.
Right. I'll let Deputy Director Lakes answer that.
Yep.
Chair Wansley, thank you for that question. I didn't mention North Point here because I was only looking at answering our questions about procurement. They don't relate to procurement. They're more of a referral provider.
And maybe I'm thinking contract, because we had a contract with them, and they did provide, I don't know what role in terms of, I saw them as also a technical assistant, so it seemed, kind of under like John Jay, and I think most people aren't aware that we did have North Point at the table at one point to provide critical services, so just wanted to get a sense of, again, why they weren't reflected, not just and also because we had a contract with them, or am I
Chair Wansley, I don't know if we have a contract with North Point. Let me follow up and check on that.
We ever have a contract with North Point? Councilmember Vita?
Chair Wansley, we did have a contract with North Point, but I also think that it was before some of the folks who are independent contractors now that are like funded for these services under their own businesses. Maybe we're doing the work under North Point at one time. Because I personally worked with Westbury and Ferrome at North Point, but then now we have Westbury and Ferrome has his consulting also outside of North Point.
Gotcha. And that's
Did
why
that make sense?
No, that does. It still just wanted to get a sense of the timeline and of when did that phase out. Then did it still go within the scope of the LD? So if that could be noted for follow up too. And also with that for slide 12, because I saw the asterisk of it does not include contracts for technical assistance providers, and wanted to understand why, because I did want to get a sense of what is the average contract term for some of these providers, especially thinking of John Jay had been a long-term contract provider, I believe, and they were one of the contractors even too who had shared they faced struggles in getting invoices paid on time. So just wanted to get a sense of why they weren't reflected. Also same with Next Step too, of making sure our programs, for instance, were being reflected there. So just wanted to get a sense too of why they weren't reflected in this.
Chair Wansley, absolutely. I can follow up in a memo on that.
And then their average contract term as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for that. And then also that goes to slide 24 for the blueprints. I know this came kind of top of mind for me because it just went through committee, but the Amy Moser consulting contract, what was the reason for that not being reflected here? Or because it seemed to also fit within the contract terms.
Chair Wansley, council members. Amy Moser contract is being treated as like a technical assistant provider, and so that's why that is not being reflected in the presentation.
Okay, so I think I would treat that also under a follow-up for kind of the John Jay North Point of getting a sense of what was the duration of their contract, since it does fit within that timeline. And then also for slide 27, diving more into, again, since we do talk about some of, or you mentioned some of the technical assistance providers like Cure Violence, and the support that they do provide. I just want to get clarity. Are we still looking to pursue like the site selection process with them?
Chair Wansley, so yes, so we're still in the evaluation process for a technical assistance provider, and this technical assistance provider will need to be able to make the city of Minneapolis a fully certified Cure Violence site. And so once we're able to finalize evaluations, select the top scoring vendor, engage in negotiations, we'll be in front of you with that vendor.
Okay, and then follow up on that information too, probably for a staff memo. Whatever, have that RFP also ask clarity on what the cost would be for a site selection process. From my understanding, when the city actually pursued this a couple years ago, we were told, at least for Cure Violence, it would be about $750,000 per site that we had. So it would be good clarity to know what would be the cost of that. Because when I initially heard that, I was like, oh, that means they'll just certify us. But it sounds like they actually would like to do certification per, let's say, these GVI right here on 26, it would be for, Minneapolis. For these right here, it would be per $750,000 for each one of these, at least at the time we initially pursued conversations around site selection. So just wanted to get clarity on that.
Yeah, so ideally, when we're negotiating contracts, we want to stick to milestones with these contracts, and so it gives the city a better investment, and so that is the direction that we intend to go, understanding what their pricing is per year, and then go from there.
And per site, okay. Because at least when it was initially reported, I was like, oh, there sounds like a flat fee. That's part of something that's extended to all cities, it sounds like, but only learned in conversation with some of the other cities who have looked at this process and knowing that we did, that there was a per site, and it was pretty substantial for $750,000 per site, and recognizing the budget size of NSD, that would be kind of substantial. Yeah. So yeah, any follow-up on that would be great. And then I think those are all the questions that I have and we have a few of them that are reflected for a staff memo. And then I see Vice Chair Palmisano in queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Lakes, Mr. Commissioner Barnett, Ms. Fernandez. This is not real exciting stuff, but it sure has been an uproar lately. From your previous presentation last cycle and now this one, it's not about being exciting, but on a solid track into compliance with a lot of rigor around things that are sometimes hard to measure. And these were hard to initially get up and running about 5 years ago at the outset, but it sounds as though we're in a different place in the arc of all of this and in the media frenzy on this. My own summary would be, this department is a lot further along than the public might think. So our city has received the technical assistance to ensure our practices are now in line, which what was recommended by Cure Global Violence, John Jay, and the Safe and Thriving Communities Report. Is that correct? I'm seeing you shake your head, yes. Furthermore, it's consistent with our regular procurement processes as outlined by Ms. Fernandez. Now, this is not in the legislative directive for the presentation per se, but I am also interested, as I've heard mentioned today, in a future discussion about operational oversight and regular auditing. We've questioned those in the past in regards to this kind of work. That was not part of this legislative directive. I just want to acknowledge it because it feels a little bit like maybe the elephant in the room here. I do have a couple questions. The first one was back on slide 8. You said debriefings are held to review the evaluation process with vendors once it's publicly available and the RFP scoring. And I'm curious, is that just for those chosen or also for those that were not chosen so that they could maybe do better next time?
Yeah, so the purpose of the debrief is to have mutual feedback. I apologize, Chair Wansley, council members. So the purpose of the debrief is to enable mutual feedback. Oftentimes, we have small organizations that are not able to maneuver the procurement process, and it's not that they're not able to provide the work. It's the proposal was just insufficient, and they were just not a top scoring vendor. And so the purpose of the debrief is to meet with them to understand what are some of the challenges that you experienced, and also to provide feedback based on the reviewers as to the strengths and the weaknesses in their proposals, and to have that transparency. I think oftentimes, with the process, the evaluation process, it's looked at as a raffle, right? And so people want to know, why wasn't I selected? Why is the same people winning the raffle every year? And if we can outline to them, this is a process, this is how you can be successful, it will continue to encourage vendors to continue applying because we want diversity and we want a competitive process.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And have those meetings happened yet, and how were they received?
So in my previous position, I have participated in a few debriefs with the Neighborhood Safety Department. However, we cannot engage in debriefs until the contracts are fully executed. And so what I do offer, as Deputy Director Lakes mentioned, we offer those office hours because oftentimes vendors cannot wait to understand their strengths and weaknesses. We do not, for procurement, we do not discuss the RFP that they apply to, but a lot of the boilerplate language applies to other RFPs, and it's really an opportunity not to delay that feedback and to encourage them to apply to another opportunity that might be available to them before contracts are fully executed.
That's helpful. The other piece on this slide that I noticed is the mandatory invoice training. Will this be the first time that we've done that mandatory invoice training? Because I see it helping with the timeline to payment.
Yes.
Okay. Another part of these questions were the annual statistics year over year for violence prevention contract administration. Other than 2024, when we were developing a new process, it appears that NSD and previously Office of Violence Prevention are in line with payment timelines. It seems that they are. I know that there's been some questions. I totally get why these smaller groups can't necessarily make payroll, but we're doing the best that we can, and some of them fit into our target market program. We've talked a lot about our GVI and YGVI contracts, and we're working toward approving those contracts beginning April 1st. I see that our Minneapolis contracts are also expiring. So will you be bringing forward those contracts soon?
Yes, we will bring forward those contracts during the last AAO cycle in March.
Okay. And have those chosen and non-chosen vendors been notified yet?
Not as yet.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your help and for this presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chair Palmisano. Oh, just quick, there is a follow-up question I did have. Especially since I believe both you and Councilmember Vital have raised this piece around the struggles that smaller vendors have. And largely, I know that's why we implemented things like Blueprint Institute around like how do you do capacity building. But I did, and I think it was the specific question around advance payments. Do you know, was there ever a point, did we do advance payments through NSD?
Chair Wansley, I'll have to check and get back to you on that one.
Okay, because I think that clarity on that, from my understanding, I believe there was, and that might be, again, the thing that was addressed through the lawsuit or legal settlement, and that's why there might be some confusion as to why funds are not being dispersed to. So just clarity on that piece. Or unless Director Fernandez also know anything or clarity on? Nope.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, around the advance.
Talking, I
Yeah.
didn't.
Oh, no, just want to know if NSC ever did advance payments before.
Chair Wansley, really have to go back and check
So-
on that. I was just asking, were there any exceptions to advance payment? Because I was trying to figure out maybe that could have happened. I just don't know.
Okay, so note that for our staff follow-up too, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, great. And that is actually all the questions that are in queue right now. So thank you so much, Deputy Director Leah Lakes and staff for that presentation. I will ask the clerks to also receive and file that report. Also, thank you, CAO Abelson, for sending the legal settlement doc over to us. So for those who want to also look at that, that's in your inbox. But with that, we have concluded all business on today's agenda. So with that, I will adjourn today's meeting.